In this module, we're going to look at graphing linear functions using a table. And so when we're graphing linear functions, they're going to create straight lines when they're graphed. And usually you're going to see them in the form of y equals mx plus b. And so in that form, we've got two things. We've got the y and the x, and that's going to always be there. You're always going to have a y, you're always going to have the x. But the m and the b, those are going to be values. And so the m is going to represent our slope. That's the rate of change. And so that's going to tell us, how steep our graph is, whether it's going up like that or really steep or not quite, so steep, a little bit flatter, or whether it's going down. It's going to tell us all those different things. And then your B value, that's going to be your y-intercept. It's where the line crosses the y-axis. Remember, the y-axis is the one that goes up and down. The x-axis is the one that goes side to side. So steps to graph using a table of values. So the first thing you're going to want to do is solve for y if it's not already done. So when you're using your calculator, especially to help you do this, you've got to have it in y equals 4. So we're going to rewrite the equation in the form y equals mx plus b if it's not given to us that way. Then we're going to choose some x values. Some common x values, these are usually pretty safe ones, are -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. But you can use your calculator to help you. I'm going to show you how to get a table of values. We're going to plug in those x values to find our y's. Again, we're going to use our table. Calculator can help us with that. Then we're going to plot the points on our coordinate graph, and then we're just going to connect those with a straight line. Some helpful tips as you're working through these. Always simplify your expression and just be careful when you're plugging in those x values if you are doing it by hand. You really only need a few points, 2 to 3, to graph a line because it's just going to be a straight line for these linear graphs. But the more points you have, the more accurate it's going to be. And then just look for patterns. So remember, your slope is going to be, again, how steep it is, right? So that's like rise over run, rise over run. It tells you about the steepness of your graph. So let's look at some examples. So example 1, we want to complete the table and then graph. So in our table, if we're going to do this and we want to just use the function to fill in our table, we would simply just plug in our values. And so these are going to be our x's, 0, 1, and -1. And we're just going to plug those in for x. So in my calculator, I could just do 4 times 0 plus 5. And obviously that's going to be 5, right? I would put my 5 here. And then I could do the same thing with 1. And I could do the same thing with -1. And I've got my table of values. And so what these values are, these are my ordered pairs. So there's x and y, x and y, x and y. And I can graph those. And so when I come to my graph, I can say, okay, well, my x is the horizontal and y is the vertical. The first point is going to tell me how far I go on the x-axis. So since it's positive, I would go right. Sorry, if it's negative, I'm going to go left. And then positive for the y, I go up, and negative for the y, I go down. Sorry, I looked at that 0 and threw me off because I'm not going to go anywhere, right? So for 0, we're not going left or right. We're just going to stay at 0. And so for 0, 5, I'm not going to go anywhere left or right, right? 0 is right here. And so for the 5, I would go nowhere left or right, but then I would move up 5 spaces. So this point here, that is 0, 5. Then for 1, 9, okay, I'm going to go to the right 1. That's my x. And then up 9 spaces. So this would be the point 1, 9. Then for -1, 1, I'm going to go to the left. That's -1 on the x. And then up, that's +1 on the y. And so you can see that those 3 points would create this straight line. And that's our graph for y equals 4x plus 5. And you can see our slope, like I was talking about here, that slope is 4. That's my slope. Okay. And my y-intercept is 5. And so the slope, if I went up, I would go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I would go over 1, and that gets me from one point to the next. And then you can see my graph goes through the point at 5. Now, if you wanted to use your graphing calculator to help you, if you go to y equals, okay, y equals is right here, kind of see it light up, and then we type in that function. So we're going to type in 4. The X key that you're going to use, if you look, it'll light up real quick right here, XTON, it's right beside that green alpha key, and then plus 5. That's going to graph this for you. So if you now press the graph button, you can see that it graphs the same graph that we have there, okay? Mine may look a little bit different than yours just because I have just a different app on my iPad than what you're using in your handheld. Then we can look at a table. Okay, so if you want to go to your table, you're going to press second and then graph. And that's going to give you a table of values. And you can see based on our table that it gives us the same points. So you can see 0, 5, you can see 1, 9, and you can see negative 1, 1. So you can use your table to get these values if you want. So we did y equals, and we put our function in, right, into y1. And then we did graph to see our actual graph. And then if you do second graph, that'll take you to your table. So second and then table. And you can see above graph in blue, it says table. All right, let's look at another one. So here, if we wanted to practice that, we could go back to y equals, hit the clear button, and then we're going to start over. So now we're going to do negative 2x plus 6. We can see what the graph looks like. Okay. It's negative slope, that's why it's going down. You can see it going through 6. To get my table values, I'm going to press second graph. Okay, I'm going to scroll until I see what I want. So 0, 6, 1, 4, and negative 1, 8. And now I can plot those. So 0, 6. I'm not going to go anywhere left or right, but I'm going to go up 6. 1, 4. I'm going to go to the right 1 and up 4. And then negative 1, 8. I'm going to go to the left 1 and then up 8. And those are my 3 points. And now I can graph these. You know what? It's like it doesn't look right, so that's okay. Here we go. Good chance for you to see how I saw, hey, doesn't look right? Because if I tried to graph this, look, it doesn't go through, right? And so that happens, right? You can put a point in the wrong spot because sometimes these little dots they're small. I miscounted this one. And I had it at 1, 5. But it should be 1, 2, 3, 4. It should have been right there. But if you ever do that, don't force your graph to work, right? Don't force it. Go back, look at your mistake, try to figure out, well, what's wrong, right? What was wrong with my graph? And I knew something was wrong with my graph. So I went back and I fixed it. Now they fit. I just can't draw a straight line, but they fit, okay? And they work well. And it looks like what I know it should look like when I press the graph button, okay? All right. Number 3. So again, this one's a little bit different because it's not in y equals, but that's always going to be our first step. So if we are going to use our calculator, especially if you look, it says y equals. That means we have to have it in y equals. So that means that we're going to come in and we're going to solve for y. Okay, so our first step, we're going to subtract 7x from both sides. We're going to take this and we're going to move that over there. So 9y equals negative 7x. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 9. And so that leaves me with y equals negative 7/9 x. And now I have an equation that's solved for y. So when I come into my calculator and I graph that, negative 7/9 x. And I'm going to graph it. If you notice it goes through 0, 0, that's because there's no b value here. It's just empty. It could be like I had plus 0, which makes sense. It's negative, that's why it's going down. I can go back to my table, second graph, and I can get my values. So negative 9, there's 7, 0, 0, and 9, negative 7. I'm going to graph those. So negative 9, 7. Let's see if I can count right this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 0, 0. And then 9, negative 7. And then we're going to connect them. And that's it. Example 4, same idea. We need to solve for y first. So we've got to isolate that. So we're going to start by moving this to this side. So that would leave us with 2y equals 16 because it's going to become positive. So 16x minus 16. Then I'm going to divide everything by 2. And now I just have y equals 8x minus 8. And now I have something I can put in my calculator because it's y equals. So I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to graph 8x minus 8. I'm going to hit graph. I can look at my calculator and I can see, okay, yep, it goes through negative 8. It's got a positive slope. I can go to my table and I can look for my values. This one doesn't give me a table. So what that means is I can pick the values I want. Okay, I can make my own table. I can make any table of values I want. So I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to say, okay, well, I like that 1, 0 is there. So I'm going to pick that. I like 2, 8. 3, 16 is kind of big, but I like 0, negative 8. And we'll go with those. So I've got 1, 0. I've got 2, 8. I've got 0, negative 8. And now I've got a line. I do not have a line. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay.